Hi, I'm Rob Linke. I'm with the Easter Blood Drive. More than 20 years ago, I made a promise to God that I would become a regular blood donor for as long as I live, in gratitude to His hand in helping to save my wife Margot's life through a health crisis. It began suddenly one Saturday morning. We lived in rural New Brunswick, about 35 kilometers from downtown St. John. We went into the city for a shopping errand. We had our young children with us who were grade school age. And my wife complained that her knee was stiff and tender, and she wanted to go home. And I said, "What have you done to it?" And she said, "I don't remember banging it or twisting it or lifting anything heavy. It just feels really bad, and I don't feel well. I feel nauseous." I said, "Well, let's go home and we'll take a look at it." So we drove all the way home. And I thought, well, she's somehow injured it and forgotten about it. She can be a bit of a klutz. But as soon as we got home, she could barely make it up the stairs into her house. She needed help getting her jeans off. And in helping her, I touched her knee. And as soon as I did, I knew that we were into uncharted territory because it was the hottest flesh I'd ever felt. It felt like she'd been sitting too close to the campfire for too long. I called her father in Toronto. He was an orthopedic surgeon and a sports medicine doc. And I said, "Margot's somehow injured her knee, but what's weird is that it's really hot." And he said, "That's not an injury." We had a little chat, and he said, "I need you to get her to the regional hospital as fast as you can." Where we lived, ambulances really weren't the solution. And I said, "When you say really fast, do you mean legal fast or illegal fast?" And he said, "Safe but illegal fast. I'm going to call ahead and let them know that you're coming and what they'll be facing." So that told me that it's pretty serious. It's an infection that is a real threat. By the time I reached the hospital, she was in shock. She was incoherent. She was white as a ghost. I was really feeling the urgency, feeling fear. Rather than pulling into the normal bay where the triage desk would have been and the triage nurse, I drove right into the bay where the ambulances were. And I yelled for a gurney and I said, "I think we're losing somebody here." They rushed her in. They assessed her. A nurse who was in charge of that emergency bay that day was somebody we knew well from church. And I thought she would let me stay. But when it was apparent that they couldn't get a line in because her veins were collapsing, Lois ushered me out. Another clue that we were into something really serious. Over the next 3 days, Margot had 3 surgeries where they would open up her leg. She has a long incision over her left knee, extends below it and above it. And they would apply the antibiotics right to where the infection was in the hopes that they could be more effective. And there was a race to stop the infection from climbing up her leg, because if it hit her groin or her torso, we'd be into a different situation that would be threatening more than her leg. Just before the 3rd surgery, I got a call asking me to show up at the orthopedic surgeon's office. And I did, and I went in. And there were a number of specialists with her. They just had a meeting on their strategy for the 3rd surgery. Margot was on such intense painkillers that she couldn't give medical consent. They asked me if I was willing to sign for her the medical consent form, giving them permission to take her leg if they decided, once they were in, that they needed to do that to save her life. I didn't hesitate. I said, "God gave her 2 great legs. I'll still love her with one. Just give me the pen and go do your work." The 3rd surgery was going to be decisive. for her leg and quite possibly for her life. And I'd never been in a situation like that before. I'd never felt so needy and desperate, and that something critical to my life and the life of my wife and my children was beyond my control. And so I was on my knees. And I reached out to family members and our priest and close friends and said, I need you to pray now. And it came to me that with all of the trust that I was placing in God, with all the medical expertise and the antibiotics and the science that was on her side, that she might be saved. And if she was saved, I needed to be deeply, deeply thankful. And especially to God. And so I made a commitment that came to mind, which was a medical one. I don't have any medical gifts. I only have basic first aid like a lot of people. But I thought I could give back to the medical system in gratitude to God by committing to become a regular blood donor. So I made that commitment, and I waited hour after hour for a surgeon to come down and tell me the outcome of the surgery. And she had a smile on her face when she came down, and she said, we've saved her leg. We've done the best we can. Now we wait. And it turned the tide. And so they did the third surgery. Took quite some time. And when they came out, they said, it went well. She still has her leg. And we'll monitor things closely. And that was the turn. That was the turn of the tide. She very quickly responded well. You could see that her leg was getting healthier day by day. The infection receded, and finally it was beaten. But when I had that meeting and that third surgery, I was praying with even greater urgency and sense of need than at previous periods during the crisis. And I knew that the Christians, many devout Christians in our family and in our circle, were doing likewise. And during that prayer, where I wasn't really worried about her leg, I was worried about her life. I had a sense that God was listening and he would have a hand in the outcome. And I wanted to thank him. For some reason, I wanted to thank him in a medical way because it was a medical context, and I have no medical gifts. I just have some basic first aid training. And so the idea of donating blood came to mind. And I thought I would make a promise to God that in gratitude for him saving my wife, I would donate blood the rest of my life. That was just over 20 years ago. And my next donation will be number 94. It will be part of the Easter Blood Drive. But I'm frankly embarrassed that I needed a medical crisis where I almost lost the woman I love to motivate me. I always knew it was a good thing to donate. I always thought I might get around to it. I always had a reason in my busy life to not do it. And I sort of assumed that other people were taking care of it. Canadian Blood Services is great. They make it really easy. You go in, you book, you register that you've arrived, and you've filled out the questionnaire. And I've since learned that Canadian Blood Services really needs a fresh crop of donors to commit year after year, that a small fraction of Canadians donate. I'm grateful to be one of them because it's really meaningful to me. It's in us to give. It really is. And it makes a difference, and they need it. So please give.